Welcome to Programming from Scratch. Today what I'd like to do is a code kata in C#, and it's a code kata that I just recently learned. It's the Palindrome kata. So the first thing we need to do is get a test project going. I'm just going to use MS Test because it's included, and I just want to make things easy for anybody who wants to follow along. Alright, so we'll call it, let's just make a generic code katas project. And I hate putting things in their default directory. So let's go to C drive, projects, and we'll just put it in here. Yep. Just like that. Alright, while we're waiting for it to load, I'll go ahead and start talking about the kata. So the idea is that we're just going to pass in a string. There we go. We're going to pass in a string, and we should get back a response that is true or false, and tells us whether what we passed in is a palindrome. Alright, so rules for a palindrome are a palindrome is the same forwards and backwards. So if we, for example, dad is a palindrome, we're going to ignore white space. So if there's spaces or tabs or anything like that, we're just going to ignore that. And we're going to ignore, I'm spelling it wrong, aren't I? We're going to ignore casing, lowercase and uppercase. And we're going to ignore special characters, such as hyphens, underscores, any kind of punctuation. Excuse me. Ignore punctuation, and actually, I'm going to take away that last rule because I just want to keep this simple. Alright, so we'll call this alright, if I've spelled this wrong, I apologize, but that's not the important part of writing these unit tests. So I think that's how you spell it. Totally could be the wrong way. Alright, so the first thing that I want to check is that the method exists. So I'll just say is palindrome method exists. Alright, and let's see, we have var, I'm gonna call it string checks. Cool. You know what I want? Here's how I want this to work. I want to have a string, right? And I want to say is palindrome. I want to do it like that. Alright, and that's a compile error. So, oh, I can't do that. Okay. So we need to make that happen. So we need a public class string extensions. It's a static class. Alright, we're going to say public I don't have any reason to return anything at the moment, so public void is palindrome. This string value. Oh, that needs to be static too. All right, so now that test should be passing. Control RT should run the tests. And I'm going to get rid of the properties when I'm going to put the test where the properties are. Build succeeded. Come on. It's thinking. Oy vey. Did the test run? Let's get rid of that. This needs to be renamed to palindrome tests. Tools, test, run. Run. Control RA. Used to be RT. Could swore. Might have been wrong. All right, and I'm going to put this over here. There we go. And yeah, you can't do it in in premium and above. There's a little button, and you can just click the button, and then every time you build, it'll compile the test. But apparently, you can't do that in Community Edition. So we'll just click Run All whenever we want. All right, so now my method exists, and the next thing that I need is it's got to return something, right? So let's see. What would a failing test be? Because I think that would be the best thing to start with. Let's see. You know what? If I pass, before we do like true, false, failing, passing, we need like error conditions. So if I pass in it throws if null. So we'll do this. So we'll say since null by itself isn't a string, so the extension won't work, I'll have to create a variable. So var test equals null, not var string, right? And then I can say real quick, expected exception argument null exception, comma value, comma value. All right. Now we've got that, so we can say test.is palindrome like that, and oh, this has to be a type of. Okay. Now I expect that to fail. And it does good. All right. So the way to make it pass is just to throw a new argument null, not that one. Argument null exception. And I still expect it to fail, but I expect it to fail for a different reason. If we look at the, if we look at the reasons here, expected it to throw an argument null exception. Value cannot be null, and I guess it just didn't. So if we say value, then now I expect it to pass. Is it still mad at me? If I get rid of the parameter name, Okay, well that's just broken altogether, isn't it? It threw an exception. System argument null exception value cannot be null. Well, yeah, it did. But I expected that. Okay, and this is why I don't like that one. So we're going to try this. We're going to catch argument null exception. And we're going to call it EX, right? All right, and if we fail to catch, we're going to fail the test. Right, and we're going to assert is true dot parameter name equals value. All right, so I expect this one. Okay, I want to see it fail. I don't want to see it fail for the right reason. So let's, or I want to see it pass the argument exception, but fail for the parameter. So we'll call it. We'll do that for a second. All right. So now, oh well, that was stupid. Are equal. The expected is this one. Sorry about floundering a little bit there. All right, let's try this again. Now, I do expect the is palindrome method exists to fail, but I expect, all right, good. Expected value, actual test, and now we can fix this back to the correct thing. Rerun our test, and the is throws should, yes, pass, and the other one fails because that's all we're doing. So now we need to make sure that the other one doesn't fail. So if value is null, then do that. Otherwise, don't. And both should pass. They both pass. Check. Awesome. All right. So now I have to ask myself what the simplest possible thing is that I can actually verify is a palindrome. And I don't know if it really is a palindrome, but the simplest thing that comes to mind is an empty string. If I take an empty string and I reverse it, it looks the same. So what I would like to test is that. I'm going to say that an empty string is palindrome. Palindrome. All right. So our result equals string dot empty dot is palindrome. Assert dot is true result. All right, so we have a failing test because it's failing to compile, and that's because it's void. Can we? No, I don't have ReSharper installed. All right. Okay, so this just has to be bool, not BPP. See, fingers, wrong spot. Return false. Okay. Yep. And it should fail. And it fails. Does it fail for the right reason? And it fails because it's failed. It's false. Result is false. It doesn't fail because of some kind of weird thing. All right. The easiest thing that I can possibly do is that. Ta-da, it passes. All right. So now, oh, and what I'm doing here, the process that I'm going through, and I've just really started it. The previous test was something you should do every time, regardless, no matter what. You always want to do the failures first. Sometimes the failures will actually lead your code in the right direction. But even if they don't, you want to cover those right off the bat, and that makes your code stronger. But I'm intending to employ two techniques. The first technique is Devil's Advocate. So with Devil's Advocate, you do the laziest possible thing to make the test pass, right? You don't go out of your way. You just do the easiest thing that will make that test pass. And then I'm also doing Golf, which is to make the test pass, I'm trying to write as few keystrokes. Now they kind of go together pretty easy. But those are the two things I'm doing. All right, so the next test, we've got a passing test where it is a palindrome. So we need something that's not a palindrome so that we can get another failing test. No. There we go. All right, test method. Well, the simplest non-palindrome that I can think of is like do, right? Because like a single letter, A, for example, you flip it around and it's still the same. But do, you flip it around and it's odd with one D. So let's try that one. So, empty. I don't need that. All right. Two letter non palindrome is not a palindrome. This is probably not the best name, but you know, whatever. Var result equals do. All right. Assert is false. Result. All right. And I expect that to fail because everything's a palindrome right now, and it does fail. So what could I say? I could say if value dot length is less than no. Value dot length is greater than 0. Return false, otherwise return true, right? And then let's run them. What's that do? Everything passes. Awesome. Okay, now I hesitated there for a second because I realized that a single character, by the rules that I'm setting, I want to be a palindrome. And I've had to go to a 2-character test in order to say that it's not a palindrome. But now I feel like I should backpedal a little bit and go back and say that a single character is a palindrome, because right now it's not. You see, so I'm going to do that. And the reason that I'm shouldn't have done this first is because you only want to write the test that's going to fail. You have to see your test fail first. It's just one of the rules of TDD. Always start with a failing test. Okay, so single letter is palindrome. All right, var result equals A, for for instance, is palindrome. Assert is true. Result. Okay. And I'm kind of expecting this to fail, or else I wouldn't have wrote it, right? Okay, and it fails. Now, what's the smallest thing I can do to get them all to pass? And I think, let's do that. And if it's less than 2, right, because DO is 2, 1, but A is 1, and so if it's 1 or less, but that's less than or equal, which is 2 characters, but I could do less than 2 and save a character. And then I just really just have to swap these. So if it's less than 2, it's true. Otherwise, I could say it's false. And I think that that'll work right now. So I'm going to try that. Save it and run it. And that should pass. Passes. All right. Okay, so it seems to me that the next thing is, what if I have a 2-letter palindrome, right? So I don't know off the top of my head any actual 2-letter palindromes, so I'm just going to make one up. And I'm going to say that result equals dd dot is palindrome. I know that that's not really one, but I mean it is, but it's not a word, so whatever. It's the next simplest thing I can think of. All right, so this one I expect to be false. It's going to return false, which means it's going to fail, and then I'll have to fix it. Okay, and it fails, and oh, you can't tell if it fails for the right reason. Whatever. Okay, so it fails. So the simplest thing I can do I think the simplest way to check is to say that they're all the same letter. But I think that, and I'm getting a bit ahead of myself now, but I think that if I'm truly lazy about it, okay, you know what? I'm going to change it a little bit, and I'm going to say that palindrome, simple palindrome is a palindrome. Let's do a real palindrome. We'll say dad, right? And I'm sort of doing this to force myself to do this solution correctly, because there's 2 ways that I was thinking, right? So I was thinking that I could get the first letter and the second letter, and if they're the same, I could call it a palindrome, which would work for the 2-letter case, but it would fail for the 3-letter case. However, for the 3-letter case, I'm going to do something extremely similar and just check and see if the first and the last are the same. So I could just skip to the 3-letter case and only have to make the test once instead of having to make it twice and having to rewrite code that was basically doing the same thing. So that's what I'm going to do. So if I say value dot, we're gonna throw a little link in here because I'm lazy. First, oops, JavaScript equals value dot last. Nope, come back. Then we're gonna return true. All right, and it doesn't know where those come from, and that's not gonna help, obviously. So we need to include link. There we go. All right, it looks happy now. So that's the simplest thing I think that will make this test pass. Does it make a pass? Makes pass. All right. Well, so now I've got that. So now that I know that I'm only checking the first and the last, what could I write that would make that a false positive? And I believe that if I write, excuse me, dead is not palindrome, I think that that'll work. So var result equals dead dot is palindrome, search is false result, and I think that this will fail because it's going to say dead is a palindrome. All right, well, so now that I've got the outer two checked, now I need to check the inner two. And with the current setup, I think the easiest way so here's where golf comes in, right? Because I could say if value dot, or if substring thing and stuff, and then I would run into a problem where I'd have to check the length before I can get the substring, because if it's just 2 characters, then it'll blow up. But I think I can simply say return is palindrome. Oh, actually, return value dot substring, and substring takes a starting index. So I want to skip the first one, right? And then I want to go all the way to the end, but not get the last one. So value dot length -1 dot is palindrome, and see what happens. Simple palindrome is palindrome, and it says it's not. And that's because I intentionally put a bug in, and we'll just take that bug out. I wanted to see if the bug would actually go in, and it won't. So that's good. All right. So with that, I believe that any length of palindrome, assuming that the palindrome is the same casing and the same spacing, should pass. So let's just do a quick smoke test here. So all right, so var result equals able was I, error I saw Elba. All right. Oh, I need to assert is true result. So this is a palindrome. It's evenly spaced, so it should pass. And it does. Awesome. Okay, so this is where we're gonna do our smoke tests. So we'll say I'm gonna change this to so rename refactor rename F2. I thought it was F2. Okay, anyway, so we'll call this even spaced lowercase palindrome. Yeah. All right, it's a bit of a mouthful, but there we go. Okay, so we'll just keep those down at the bottom. All right. So now we need to do something about uppercasing and lowercasing, right? So a simple test would be dad is palindrome. Var result equals dad is palindrome. Assert dot is true result. And this one's going to, I expect it to fail, but I want it to pass. It fails, so that's good. And I think if we say, value equals value dot to lower, I think that will make this pass. And it does. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm satisfied with that. So, fat fingering all over the place today. Plug void. Let's do uneven spacing is palindrome. All right. So var result equals I would like to use an actual thing. Now I know there's a Panama one. Let's look for I know everybody's cringing right now. That's what makes it fun to use Bing. Let's see. Palindrome examples. Okay, let's do this one. All right, we'll just we'll get rid of the punctuation because we're not going to do punctuation. Do that. Looks like it carried over the dot. All right, so all right, and we run, and I expect it to fail. It does. Let's take out the variable of the capitalization, even though we've already shown that that shouldn't matter. All right, so we've got that there, and value equals value dot normalize. What did it say normalize does? Returns a string whose textual value is the same as this string, but whose binary representation is in Unicode normalization form C. No, that's probably not what I want. Is there anything special? Nope, nothing. So I'm gonna do the lazy, easy way. And I'm gonna do that. And I think that that will work for this case. And it does. Awesome. So now if we go back to here, that one's funny. I like that one. Once you notice that decaf backward is faced, it is but the work of a moment to invent the indignant complaint of a coffee drinker confronting the absence of regular coffee. I faced decaf. The same process yields a trader's cranky opinion, nits stink, and a travel agent's apology to a volcanologist, Avalon, no lava. Oi. Yeah. A father trying to connect with his estranged son by offering him some pizza. What? Okay, well, anyway. So. Oh, I like that one. I like that one a lot. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama. We'll do that one. And we'll take out the hyphens. Because we're not doing those. And we'll put that in our smoke test. var uneven spaced excuse me, not lowercase palindrome. Okay, so get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Is true. Uneven spaced, unlowercased, and I expect them all to pass. Oh, and it fails. Oh. Missed one. Let's try again. All right, they all pass. Okay, so now there is some optimization that we can do, right? We don't really need to be lowercasing and replacing and throwing every single time we come through here. So I can pull this out and I can say return is is exact palindrome. Do it like that, and then I can come down here and say public static bool is exact palindrome this string, oops, value, and then I can just drop this stuff in and save, and I believe that that will pass. It does. So now, as an example, I have var exact palindrome, var exact. So we'll do this. We'll say exact palindrome not exact palindrome equals dad dot is exact palindrome is false. Not exact palindrome var exact. Am I missing something here? There we go. Exact palindrome equals dad dot is exact palindrome is true exact palindrome. Okay, and I expect everything to pass, and it does. All right, so we could do punctuation, and we could possibly see if there's some way that we could optimize some of this stuff. The replace could easily be turned into some regular expression match that that would remove white space and do all the things that are left to do. But I'm not overly concerned. I mean, we got the point of it. Now, if I had told anyone watching this, right, that this is what I wanted it to do, and then told you that you were not to use TTD, and that you were not to follow the path that I just followed, I'm willing to bet that almost every one of you would have ended up with a for loop or a while loop or some kind of loop, instead of doing what we've done here, which is recursion. But this is a much easier, much simpler solution, and it works great. So that's what I like about this particular code kata, is it forced me to solve the problem in a way that I would not have instinctively solved the problem. But anyway, there's my example of the palindrome code kata. Thank you, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Or you'll see me next time. I won't see you. Goodbye.